And we talked about this last week, and really being focused on what it is that you want to accomplish in this, because it just becomes a challenge. And, that's the case in anything, right? When you're trying to change your life, when you're trying to, move some priorities around and make some stuff happen. For whatever reason, that's when all the challenges seem to want to rear their ugly head. Either they were always there and you just didn't notice them, or now they've just, become significant because you're trying to make changes and, do some things differently in your life and stuff, man. But yeah, I'm glad to see you still fighting the good fight and still doing it. If there's anything we can ever do to help, definitely, definitely feel free to reach out at any point.
I know. Thank you. You guys are so awesome.
Yeah, This is a good group, man. There's some good folks here. Hey, so we got Ed Klasky. Looks like he might have taken a phone call. Garrett is on the line. Hey, Garrett, what's going on, buddy?
All right. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. Yeah. So we'll just give it a little while longer. Let some other people join us in the room. We're streaming live right now to a number of different platforms and stuff. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Victor Walker, and this is the Real Estate Wholesalers Club Tuesday training. What I do on Tuesdays is review contracts and go over how you can, one, understanding the contracts, and then two, how to use them in order to close deals. I do want to share a little story. In fact, Garrett's on the line today. I want to share a little story about how he actually was using a contract, and he actually combined two contracts together. But there's a really positive side to what he did that I'd like to share with you. I'm gonna wait a little while though before let some other people jump on the line and stuff. But just so you guys know, Real Estate Wholesalers Club has trainings literally 7 days a week, and allows you to come in here and ask questions, go over deals that you may be looking at, ask questions about the agreements, about how to set up your business, how to dominate your local market. We have all sorts of training for you to do. So, definitely plug in with us and everything. I am going to go over today some of the process for how to, get these lease option agreements in place, right? So we focus a lot on lease options in the club, partially because, the founder, Justin Chamness, that's kind of his forte. That's kind of what he does. So, we stay in line sort of with that. And there's also some other reasons, right? One is that it's the low-hanging fruit. We're trying to get you a deal as quickly as we can get you a deal in this game. And, with all of the regulations and everything that are coming out right now against texting, against leaving voicemails, there's a lot of noise in the air right now. One of the things about reaching out to for sale by owners, Zillow, ads and things like that is the fact that they have already raised their hand and they said, look, I'm trying to sell my house, and if you can approach them and get them to see the opportunity for working with you to sell their property, then it just becomes real easy. You don't have to worry about, them being on the no call list and stuff like that, because they're the ones who put their numbers out there in the marketplace. So there's a lot of challenges that are immediately overcome by calling on people who have already raised their hand and said, look, I'm trying to sell my property. And then all you have to do is introduce yourself, create a relationship with those people, and try to get those people to, join you in the way that you want to do this deal. So with that said, I want to, Garrett, if you don't mind, I'm going to share a little bit about our
Sure.
story with our lady in Arizona, and I want to highlight a couple of things about it. So Garrett gave me a call, and he was asking me about a deal that he had in Arizona, and so I got on the phone, with him and talked to the potential seller. And as I was speaking with the seller was describing an agreement to me. And I know you remember this, Garrett. I'm on the phone and I'm not understanding the agreement that she's referring to, right? And I'm like, I've never seen an agreement like that. So what happened is Garrett was using one of the agreements in our archives, and in the agreement, it had some, where you put in some dates and stuff like that, which was a little bit outside of what I do when I'm doing an agreement, right? So, throughout the process, Garrett and I, we collaborated back and forth. We actually redid the agreement, and we are scheduled actually to speak to the lady again today to try to finish off this deal. So here's the moral of the story. Well, before I go there, Garrett, when you were doing your contract, when you were looking for your contracts and everything and trying to gain an understanding, tell us a little bit about, what you were thinking in terms of the agreement that you used and why you chose that particular agreement.
Well, it has both parts in there.
Okay.
That's what we've kind of discussed in the past. It has a purchase and sales agreement and lease option agreement. So I kind of thought that was the best one to go to, I guess. Yeah.
So there was a part in the agreement where it asked for some dates. And I know what happened is in your mind, you were thinking to yourself, well, I need some time to inspect the property, because in wholesaling, that's what we do, right? We inspect the property. And I'm pretty sure that was in your mind when you were negotiating or speak with her about the deal, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so just to bring it back a little bit, you guys, there is no inspection period on a lease option deal. Like, there is no reason for you to inspect the property. What's going to happen is you're going to find a tenant buyer. The tenant buyer is going to come in, and the tenant buyer is going to decide whether or not they want the property. If they want anything else at that point in terms of inspections, then, it's on them to order any kind of inspections. Typically what they'll do is they'll go in themselves and they'll take a look at the property, and, they'll decide, kind of like they do whenever they're renting or leasing a property. They're going to do that same process. So, and you and I talked about this. So you don't need an inspection period in terms of that. And so one of the things that I also share with Garrett is when we're using our agreements, we want to minimize what information we're sort of triggering with these people, because what could happen is you could give them so much information that it actually becomes a problem for you, where they just start asking questions that are, sort of irrelevant, right? So you want to be real clear. If you haven't sent out an agreement before, do a check with us, check with somebody on the team, one of the coaches, and we'll make sure that you're sending out the right agreement. Here's the positive side of what Garrett did, right? Whatever he did in terms of his creating a relationship with this person, and we always talk about it. I always talk about it. This is a relationship game. Like, you want to become their guy. So when I get on the phone and I'm kind of like not understanding the agreement, I actually tell the lady we'll get back to her, and we actually sent her an updated agreement. But his relationship with this seller was already so solidified till he had became her guy. So, like, she didn't even balk at anything that we did, because there's always the chance that she might have said, well, it doesn't sound like you guys know what you're doing or something like that. But Garrett had solidified that relationship or created a relationship such that she was fine with it. Okay, yeah, that's fine, not a problem. Just send me another agreement. And, so, my kudos to you, Garrett. And that's the key right there, right? The key is the relationship. The paperwork and, that's minutia, right? That's just stuff. The key to what you did that was so incredible and deserves congratulations is the fact that whoever you were being in the situation bonded her to you in such a way that she was willing to stay in the boat.
Thank you. Yeah.
And that's really ultimately the bottom line to these negotiations when you're dealing with folks is you have to become their friend. You have to let them know that their problem, whatever they're trying to accomplish, is your priority. Right? If there's anything that goes wrong, anything that falls through, you'll be able to save it because you'll be in collaboration with your seller. Right? So, maybe you can tell us a little something, Garrett, about, how you came to build that relationship or what you felt or, what was your approach going in or something. Maybe you could share something and there's some folks that are watching that could get some value from it.
I've had about 5 conversations with her. Just basically building rapport, family, she's from the area. She had actually got the property inherited from, I think, her dad or something like that. So just kind of building rapport. I have some friends in the Phoenix area, even though this is from Tucson or whatever. Just kind of asked about her occupation, checked it out a couple times, and then I sent a proposal letter over to her, and then that's when we kind of started to just go back and forth from there. But I had about 4 or 5 conversations with her.
Over what time period?
Over about a little over a week.
Okay.
A little over a week. Yeah.
And she jumped in and liked what you were talking about. When I spoke with her, it was clear that you and her had gone over, some of the key motivators that would have. And in her case, one of it was just, what would I call it? Landlord fatigue.
Yeah. She's basically just kind of tired of being a landlord. She just, I guess, having to come over and fix things of that nature. She said she's just kind of done with it. Not so much the money. She wasn't really motivated by the money. And I got a sense that she was okay financially. She's just, I guess, the stuff that, typical landlords deal with.
Yeah. And you guys, that's going to be a key contributor to your success in terms of finding deals that you can actually close on. There's a lot of people right now that, like Garrett said, financially, she's fine. Like, the money is not really the issue. It's an inherited property. What was her motivation primarily was, one, getting the price that she wanted for the property, and 2, to get away from all of the maintenance and the calls and the being a landlord and that whole thing had just become a pain in the butt to her and her husband. And so he identified that as a motivator, and he kind of stayed with that. And that's kind of when we all got on the phone together, I just kept pushing that, well, let us take that off your hands. Let us take that off your hands. Let us take that off your hands. And she's cooperative. She's on board with everything that's going on. We're pretty confident that this is going to be a deal that we get closed. So, great job, Garrett. I just wanted to highlight some of the things, and the main thing being that even if you start off wrong, if you build relationship, everything else can be fixed, right? Everything else can be fixed, because no matter what happened, she's still on board because she likes you like that. Right. She feels like, I'm working with somebody who, and I think the most important part of it, I'm working with somebody who gives a damn. Right? Like, she knows you care more than that you're trying to just, buy her house or close a deal or whatever. Part of your personality that works is that, people are real clear when you speak with them that you are in there to try to, help them. And you guys, that's key with these, with especially with lease options, because most of the time, man, people with lease options have options, right? They have options. They can do something else. You know, these are pretty house deals. Pretty houses are selling in this marketplace. It's not that big of a problem. So the only way you're going to get past it is to, you know, create some relationships. So great job, Garrett.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to share with you guys something. Let me see if I can find the whiteboard. Sandra likes the whiteboard, so I'm going to see if I can, you know, find the whiteboard. I'm always having problems with this. But here's what I really wanted to sort of, I wanted to kind of go through the process of a lease option deal, right? How are you going to get your lease option deal? What are you going to talk to these people about? What value do you bring in a lease option deal? So the first step, obviously, and again, I'm trying to find the whiteboard. I can't find it anywhere. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find my whiteboard.
Click that share button, and it should show up as one of those panels.
On the share button?
Yeah, when you click on share, and then that'll open up choices, and you'll be able to see your whiteboard there.
Okay. Let me see, where is my share? I don't seem to be able to.
On the bottom, if you were to click share screen.
I'm looking. Here we go. Multiple participants, advanced sharing options, multiple, nope, nothing there.
I think, Victor, didn't last time you just open up a blank Word document?
I did, but that was just a Word document. I was looking.
Okay.
When I tried to do it the last time, I actually ended up finding the whiteboard by accident. Don't worry, guys.
It always happens.
Yeah. You know how it is. Anyway, I should probably practice with this thing when I'm not doing something, but oh well, such is life. So anyway, I'll just kind of go through it while I look for the whiteboard. The first thing you're going to do, obviously, is you got to find some leads, right? So where do you find leads? There's two ways basically that we do it here in the club. One is you can go directly to Zillow, and you can just go through each one and you can find the information. Needless to say, that's going to take you a minute to do. The advantage, obviously, is that it's absolutely free. Like, you don't have to pay a dime and you can get all that information. And again, it comes with an implied permission, right? They've already raised their hand. They've already put their property out on the internet, and they've already said, I want to sell my property. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is we use a system called the Automated Rei. And if you go to Real Estate Wholesalers Club, you'll see that there's a link there. Automated Rei is what we call a scraping system. And what you'll do is you go in and it'll actually scrape Zillow in whatever area you choose and actually pull up leads for you and put them onto a spreadsheet. In fact, from that system, you can actually start sending out your text messages as well, right? I don't use that system for text messaging. I use something else, but you actually could do it from right there. So now you've sent out a text message. What kind of text message should I send out? Your text message should be something that is conversational, right? Don't go out there just like, are you willing to have it? Can you discount your house, right? Like, that's the worst thing you can ask is, can you discount your house? No, I can't discount my damn house. That's why it's for sale by owner, because I'm trying to maximize it. One of their motivations being, I don't want to pay a commission, right? So that's the worst thing you can ask. Typically, what I do is I try to make a conversation like, I saw your house on the internet. I'm looking for a property in that area. Is it still available? The reason I ask, is it still available right up front, is because I want to start a series of yeses. right? Is it still available? Yes, great. I noticed that you have this price on the listing or on the internet. Are you at all flexible? What do you mean flexible? Well, I mean, would you take, is there a discount possibility, or maybe you can structure this a little bit differently? And then they'll start asking you questions. The ideal scenario is you have them asking you questions. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm glad you asked. That's a great question, right? Would you be willing to let me lease the property for, say, 36 months, and I'd be willing to give you a full price in the meantime and remove any responsibility on your part for management? Obviously, I don't say all that in one text, but that's the direction I'm going in. Would you be willing to let me lease it for 3 years? I always ask for 3 years, right? It seems to be my sweet spot. You can ask for 5, you can ask, I don't suggest you ask for 1 or 2. The reason why is because when you find a tenant buyer, your tenant buyer is probably going to need more time than that in order to put their ducks in a row, right? So I asked them, look, are you flexible? Yeah, I may be flexible. Okay, good. Well, I was thinking something like X number of months, and at the end of that time, pay you full price for the property. And in the meantime, you'll be collecting rent on the property, which in fact will not even go as a credit towards the purchase price. So it'll be just additional. Is that something, that we could talk about, or maybe not? And they're like, oh yeah, okay. So in essence, I'll be getting more for the property than it's listed for. I'm like, that's exactly right. Because we don't do credits. I don't do credits ever, because it's a management headache, and it could be a legal, hornet's nest. So me personally, now, if you want to do it, then, that's obviously a choice that you can do. But me personally, never do credits at all, period. The only thing that I might change on the agreement would be increasing the price slightly each year. All right. I'll show you guys what that agreement would look like. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Somebody say yes.
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 Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So this is the first right of purchase agreement that I use. Okay. So it has the grantor grantee information up there. The grantor is obviously the seller who grants you the option to purchase this property, right? So he grants you the first right of purchase. It's actually going to go to the tenant buyer, right? And the property address that applies to this agreement is, and you put the property address right there. Now, here is the only place on the agreement where I may, make some changes. I only make these changes, though, if in fact that seller has some issue with, the possibility that they might lose equity over time, right? But I don't put it in here right up front. So, for instance, Garrett, if you don't mind unmuting and do this role play with me real quick. I'll walk you through it. I'm not going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
All right. So you and I are having a conversation, and, your concern and your question to me is, if I lock this price in right now, what happens if the market goes up?
Okay,
So
Victor. Yeah, if I lock this price in right now, I mean, what's going to happen if the market goes up?
That's a great question, Garrett. I'm glad you asked that. And I get that question a lot. Now, what we could do is we can put a slight escalation in the agreement. What were you thinking as far as that's concerned? What value percentage do you think you should increase the price on an annual basis?
Maybe 3%.
3%? Okay, that sounds good. Let me ask you this, though, Garrett. what if the value goes down? Are you willing to make an adjustment then? Boom. You see, now it's a different conversation, right? So oftentimes I get to take this completely out. I will eliminate this whole thing. I will just be like, the price will be such and such, and eliminate all of this 12 months, like that, right? But the agreement gives me that option. That's why I use this agreement. Because if somebody says that, because they're always thinking, oh, the market is wonderful, that if values go up, I want more money for my property. Yeah, you do. But are you willing to discount the property if the price goes down? So let me consider this for a second, Garrett. All of the money that you're going to be receiving on a monthly basis, none of it is going to be credited towards their eventual down payment or the eventual price of the property. None of it. So imagine that over and above your expenses, you're taking in $500 a month. That's $6,000. Awesome. That's $6,000 a year.
That's awesome.
Is that enough? Is that enough to support your, desire to increase the price? Would that work instead of us actually, creating a price increase? Is that something we could talk about, or maybe not?
Probably.
Okay. All right, good. So that's the conversation, right? That's the conversation that I want to have in order to eliminate having them escalate this, because they always want to go up, but they never want to go down. Even when I asked you, right, your mind immediately started thinking like, oh, damn, well, okay, I don't want to reduce the price.
No.
Nobody wants to reduce the price, right? So how do you have a conversation about price reduction? Well, let's keep the price as it is and understand that not only are you going to get an upfront deposit that we're going to make non-refundable, but you're also going to be receiving monthly income from this property, which can offset the, potential increase in value over this time, and it locks in your buyer. Does that sound like something that's beneficial to you, Mr. Seller? I mean, seems to me that makes sense, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, Garrett. I appreciate you participating with me, my friend.
No problem.
But to go back to the agreement itself, you have the option. If he said 3%, all you would do, let's say, in the first 12 months, the price was let's say $100,000 for the ease of math. And in the second year, you made the purchase price, increase by 3%. So in the second year, it'll be $103,000. And then in the third year, if you did another, 3%, it would be, 3% of 103,000, right? So, and you just put those numbers in there. That's an easy calculation. I have this as part of the agreement, and I try my best to never use it. And here's the thing: if there is no change to the price, don't put anything in here. I shouldn't say don't put anything, but just put the price and take all of this other stuff out. Why do I say that? Because you don't want to create questions. Well,
gotcha.
Well, why? Well, it seems here like I could raise the price if I wanted to. That sounds like a really good idea, because I'm locking this thing. Now I have created a conversation just by them looking at this agreement that I don't want to have with them. Right? Why? I don't want to open up another conversation that is not beneficial to me. Right? But if it comes up, I have a way to deal with it in this agreement. That's why I use this particular package. If you guys don't know, this is part of a package that is within the training that Justin has. Now, there's a number of different agreements that you're going to find within the training. This one is one of the original packages, and he's gone in and he's made some changes based on some things. And you're able to make changes to these agreements as well as you use them. But it comes with 5 basic parts, right? It comes with the lease option agreement memo. The lease option agreement memo is your initial introduction to what it is that we're going to be doing. This one is, let me see if I can fix this. I'm kind of OCD, so little stupid stuff will bother me. Okay, so this is the lease option agreement memo. Again, we'll go over it just real quick. This is always the first thing I send out for when I'm talking to a seller that is considering selling their property on the lease option to me, right? And right here in this first line is going to be me and them. It doesn't have to be in any particular order. You can put them first and then you second or whatever, or you doing business as, but this will identify the parties that are going to be involved in this agreement. So, Victor Walker, DBA, the Walker Realty Group, and seller's name. And if the seller is, the Anderson Trust in parentheses, whatever, I identify that right there. And then the seller, whoever you contact as the seller, will allow the buyer, which is going to be you. So you're a seller and a buyer. One of the things that I was describing with the contract that Garrett sent out is it listed him as the tenant buyer. You're not the tenant buyer. You're the buyer. The tenant buyer is the person that you find, right? You're not the tenant buyer. You're actually the buyer in this transaction. And you'll see as we go on that there's going to be some other forms that are all going to tie in together and make it all make sense. You obviously put in the address. I always take out the city, state, zip thing. I just put the address on one line because I'm normally copying and pasting it from somewhere. And then you put in the purchase price. So my purchase price is whatever we agreed on, right? The term of the lease option, I always go for 36 months, right? I never go for less than 36 months. The monthly lease payment, how much did you agree that you were going to pay them on a monthly basis for this, right? I don't do a lot of sandwich lease options. Again, there's some management to be done there, and you decide whether or not it's worth it. Well, if you promise to pay them $1,000 a month and you can bring in $1,500, it just became a sandwich lease option. Because there's no need to give that away if you don't have to, because you could, that could be monthly income for you. A little bit of a few different documents, but it remains the same. The only difference is that now you have to manage it and you have to decide, am I going to manage it myself, or am I going to hire a management company to do it where I'm going to have to pay them to manage it for me? Or is there an escrow company that will do this for me? Or is there an attorney who has this function available in their office to manage it for me? If you decide to do a lease option, I would always say, get a neutral third party to administer the receipt and the payments on a monthly basis. That way you're kind of protected. Because if you are doing it all yourself, oh my goodness, the potential for some legal issues goes through the roof. So anyway, so your monthly lease payment goes there. The term of the lease option, very important here, guys. The term of the lease option begins as soon as the buyer acquires a lease option tenant for the property. Not when you sign this, not when any other dates. The only date that's important for the purpose of this is that nothing happens until you find a lease option tenant for the property. Okay, the lease option agreement memo will be signed by assigned by the buyer, and remember, you're the buyer, will be assigned by the buyer to a new lease option tenant. So when you go find somebody, you're actually going to be assigning this agreement to them. Again, there's some other documents that we'll be using. Seller may use the buyer's lease option agreement forms or may use a form that the seller chooses when tenant buyer moves in. So you may deal with somebody who's already a landlord, let's say, and they already have their forms, or they like to use the forms that are provided by their local real estate agent or governing body. If they do, then they do. You just want to make sure that there's nothing in there that is going to cost you. So if that ever happens to you, this is the time you got to, sit down and go over your agreement line by line. And I cannot stress that enough. Do not take for granted that their agreement is the same as yours, or that protects you the same that yours protects you. Go over the agreement line by line, make sure that you are on the same page and that they're covering all of the things that you want to do. Seller may cancel this agreement at any time if they find their own tenant or decide not to sell. Huge selling point, right? Huge selling point, because it's like, no, I don't know. I could do this myself. Well, okay, that's fine, Mr. Seller. It looks like you've been trying to do it on your own for a little period of time. And all we can do is we can give you additional resources for moving your property, and it's not going to cost you a dime in order to have us bring in our already pre-qualified potential buyers for your property and not have it cost you a single dime, while at the same time taking over all of the management and everything else that's a problem for you right now. Take that completely out your hands. How does that sound? Right? Very important. This basically turns you into, for lack of a better term, you are now their marketing arm. That's all there is. That's all a lease option is. It allows you to market their property, and it overcomes the objection. Could you change this right here? Yes, you can. You can make this an exclusive agreement if you wanted to. I never do, but I could, right? Because I can simply take out this line right here, and then it'll say buyer intention is to find a lease option tenant and assign this lease option agreement memo to that lease option tenant for a fee. How do you make your money? Well, if you notice on the contract, it says that I will actually be assigning this for a fee. That fee is how I make my money. End of story. Explains how I make my money. Why am I not charging you? Because I'm charging a fee to the tenant buyer. That's simple. Lease option tenant will then pay seller the monthly lease amount until they exercise their option or until the end of the option term. Right? What happens if they don't exercise the option? Well, remember I said that the deposit was non-refundable. The deposit is always non-refundable. You renege, then that's your problem. So if you don't have an intention of going all the way through with this deal, I suggest you don't even enter into it. Mr. Tenant Buyer or Mrs. Tenant Buyer, I suggest that you don't even enter into it if you don't intend on fulfilling this obligation, because the monies that you're putting up front, understand that it's non-refundable. And there's another form that actually tells them where they have to initial and sign off that they understand that exact thing. Don't come back to me later and don't think that we're going to court, and don't think that you have any rights, because you're obviously going to be wasting your money. And that's why I'm making sure that you understand all of the elements of this transaction. Here's a part that you also want to make sure. Important disclosure: buyer or buyers is or are the principal in this transaction and is not a licensed real estate agent in the state of, and this one happened to say Georgia, but whatever state you're doing the lease option in. So you always want to make sure you change that on your lease option agreement memo to whatever state it says. Buyers does not represent anyone in this transaction but themselves. So for this part of the transaction, it's just you. And then the rest are just the signatures necessary to allow you to move forward. Okay. Something really important happens here. Well, you might say, well, Victor, I found this on Zillow. And for me to make that fee, either I am going to have to, create a whole new agreement with the tenant buyer to pay me a fee. But the easiest way would be to simply increase the price to whatever that fee amount is that you want to make. So it's a $100,000 house. I want to make $5,000 on this deal. I'm putting out into the marketplace at 105, right? Well, but there's an ad already on Zillow. As soon as I give somebody the address, they're going to go on Zillow and they're going to see that it's $100,000. How am I going to deal with that? You have got to, hold on. Are you done? Okay, I'm done. I'll answer your question in a second, Jace. So how do you deal with that? When you create this transaction, you have to get either their permission to take over their advertising accounts. Most of these people are only on one. They're usually only on Zillow. They're not sophisticated marketers for the most part in any way. They go to Zillow, they put it for sale by owner. If they have any other ones, then you have got to get control of whatever other marketing they're putting out there. Or you have to have a conversation with them about raising the price on their advertisement to match yours, but you already have an agreement for the price. So now they know how much you're going to make. Not a problem. They're still going to make exactly what you agreed for them to make, right? But it's much easier if you can take control of that, whatever advertising they have out there in the marketplace. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because that always comes up like a problem. And it's not an easy conversation to have, right? So, Garrett, I'm gonna call on you again.
Yep.
Okay, so one of the things that we do, Mr. Seller, is that we basically control the pricing out there in the marketplace. And I noticed that right now you have a Zillow ad. That's obviously where I found you. Do you have any other advertisement going on right now?
No, not at this time, no.
Okay, all right. So what we would need to do is I would need to either have you allow me to control that Zillow ad, or have you take that Zillow ad down completely and allow me to put up my own ad. Is that something we can do, or do you have some concerns?
I guess that should be okay.
Okay, great. Yeah. So if you don't mind, you could just send me over your login information. How do you want to do it? Do you want to just take yours down and have me do one, or do you just want to just allow me to log into yours and then, make the changes? That way you can also log in and take a look whenever you need to.
I think I'll go ahead and take mine down.
Okay. All right, great. So you take yours down, and I'm basically going to copy everything that you had so it doesn't change anything. The only thing that you'll probably notice is there'll be a price change.
Okay.
Okay. But understand that you're going to get exactly what we agreed to on this agreement. Are you okay with that, or maybe not?
No, that's fine.
Okay, great. Perfect. So that's similar to a conversation. Thanks again, Garrett.
No
That's similar to a conversation you would have with someone in terms of being able to now take over their advertising, whatever they have out there in the marketplace. Because what you don't want is for you to put the house out now at 105,000, and they go on Zillow and see it for 100,000 and call your person, right? So now you've lost all control. Even if they found out about it through you, if you don't have a signed agreement with them, you have no recourse if they go directly to that seller now and make an arrangement with them, and then the seller calls you and say, I found my own person. And, even if you get into the argument about, well, that's somebody who I sent over or whatever, well, do you have some documentation? More than likely you won't. So now it's like, okay, do I get into a back and forth and create a legal situation for myself with this? Or, do I just move on to the next one? You have to protect yourself. The only way you protect yourself is you absolutely have got to get control of whatever advertising and marketing is currently out there in the marketplace. So if they're putting up additional ads and, well, I have an ad on Zillow and I did another one on realtor.com and I did another one on Trulia and I did another one on Redfin. I'm going to need to log into all of those, or I'm going to need to have you adjust the pricing on all of those. Right? So now at this point, we need cooperation. And if you guys remember back when we started this conversation, I talked about the relationship that Garrett had with his seller. Here's another reason why that's important, that you have those relationships with those sellers, because you're going to have these conversations. They have got to have enough trust in you at this point to say, yeah, I'm okay with that. I have enough, faith. That might be a bit of a strong word since they don't know you, but you've developed enough relationships so that they're comfortable with you being able to either go into their accounts or to take over whatever marketing needs to happen now for this to occur, right? Now, keep in mind that if somebody calls them directly still, well, before I go there, what's the most important part of taking over the account? There's two parts that are super, super important about taking over the account. Can anybody tell me what they are? All right, I'll tell you. Price and phone number. That makes sense? Price, you have to control the price because that's where your money comes from. Phone number is so that they call you, not the seller. So if you take control of the advertising, those are the two things you're going to be managing. You can keep all the other wording because typically the wording is fine. Those people know their property way better than you do. If they're highlighting certain things, if you read it and you say, well, we should highlight this too, then you can change the ad accordingly. But typically the only two things you're really concerned about is the price, so that you can put it out there at the price that you want to control, and the phone number that's on any advertising that's in the marketplace. It needs to come to you. Right? Now you have yourself an agreement. You've determined a price. You've determined a payment. Now, on the one that I use, I actually go in here and I do this. I mess up typing. No. Option amount. So they're going to want an upfront dollar amount. That's where I always add that. This contract didn't have it initially, but I always add the option amount. Okay, well, how much money do you want up front? Well, here's one thing. Again, Garrett, come back on real quick.
Yep.
So Mr. Seller, we've agreed on a price. We're going to, $100,000 for the property. I'm going to pay you full price for your property. We're going to do it for 36 months. I'm going to also pay you $800 a month in monthly lease payment. Right now, typically, what most of the people I work with, they'll get their deposit like a lease. So they'll normally do something like first, last plus security. Is that something we can do?
Nah, I want more than that.
Oh, okay. So what were you thinking?
Maybe 10,000. 10,000 would probably work for me.
10%. Okay. I mean, that's fair. But understand that sometimes that may not be possible. We may be talking about some folks that are really good prospects for this that are more in the FHA type category. So
Okay.
can I make a suggestion that maybe we look for what is typically an FHA payment, which is about 3.5% or $3,500? Is that something we can do, or maybe not?
Possibly.
Okay. So before I put in the contract, I need to have you, let me know. Can we do the 3,500 or that would be my suggestion, because you'll be right in line with the down payment amount that most of the people in this category are going to be looking for, and you can give them the full credit for the down payment and make it easier for them to consummate this deal at the end.
Okay.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much. So that's a conversation that you always want to have, because they're always going to ask for a dollar amount, and it's always going to be kind of arbitrary, and $10,000 is typical until you start getting into the high value properties. But they'll ask you for $10,000. Like every other negotiation, no on the first price. Okay, Garrett, can I make a suggestion? You notice I went immediately there. Like, I'm never going to accept your first offer, ever. We may end up there, but we're going to negotiate a little bit first. You don't just get what you want right off the top. Here's the reason, right? Why did I go for 3,500 as opposed to 10,000? The qualifying at the end.
Right. Qualification.
And the ability to open up more potential lease tenant buyers. Right?
Right.
Because at 3,500, my pool just got bigger than it would have been at 10,000. Not everybody has 10,000. Now, they might have said, look, well, 3,500, that might. Okay, why don't we split the difference, Garrett? Why don't we do $5,000 as the option amount? That way it covers them and helps them qualify in the end. Just remember, you're going to need to show the deposit, keep a copy of the check, whatever it is, because the lender is going to ask you for that. And all you have to do is show evidence. You don't have to actually put the money in there.
Right.
Okay. So I'm actually negotiating for the tenant buyer at this point. I want that tenant buyer to be able to have enough already down to qualify for their FHA loan. And at 100,000, pretty much that's an FHA deal, right? And if you can get an FHA deal, why would you get something else? Right? Get an FHA loan. And if you want to pay it down, just pay extra money every single month and pay it off faster, right? Like a strategy. But why put in 10,000 or 15,000 when you don't have to? Does it make sense?
This is just off the kind of off. But are FHAs, are they 15 years or are they 30 years?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, whatever payment you can afford. Here's what I always suggest to people. I was a lender. In fact, I was a lender when the market collapsed. Here's what I suggest to people. Get a 30-year loan because it allows you to have a lower monthly payment. And then get a 15-year amortization schedule and pay accordingly.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? So now you're obligated to the lower payment, like an obligation, but you're actually paying it off at a 15-year schedule. But let's say something happens 1 month. You have an option now to pay the lower payment for that month and still be right on track. No late payments, no modifications, no anything. You have full control of your mortgage payment now. If you want to pay it off in 10 years, get a 10-year amortization. Let your lender know that you plan on paying it off on a different schedule. They'll tell you what you need to do, because sometimes, and this is kind of like off the beaten path as well, but sometimes you can't just send in a 15-year payment amount, because they'll just apply it all. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to send in your first payment on the first, allow it to clear, and then pay the remaining balance to be applied directly to principal.
Gotcha.
On the 15th. Okay, your lender will tell you how to do it if you don't know, but don't just send in a 15-year payment on a 30-year loan, because they'll just simply apply it. And that changes the amortization, and it'll pay off in, like, it'll pay off earlier, but it won't pay off in 15 years. Okay, so you have to manage that, but still give yourself an option, right? You now have the option of making a lower payment or a higher payment, up to you. Anyway,
Gotcha.
Yeah. So did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, and then so that's basically it, you guys, for the lease option agreement memo. This is the one that I use. You guys feel free to use whichever one that you want, but whatever one you do use, make sure that you understand it completely, and that it serves your purpose, and that it allows you to answer the questions like you want to answer, and eliminates questions that you don't want to be introduced into the conversation. Take out whatever you need to take out, adjust whatever you need to adjust, and keep it pushing. Does anyone have any questions, any concerns, anything that they do differently, any feedback at all? I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Everybody good? All right, Gary, for participating. I see we got some. I'm sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, I said no problem.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate you. Ed, thanks for showing up. We got David Skolnick. Thank you for showing up as well. Garrett, of course. Corey was here. Rick, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks for supporting us, my friend. I really appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, buddy. Sandra's in the house, and Vaughn Cross. Vaughn is always in the game, man. Hey, you guys have a fantastic week. Thank you. I hope that you got something of value. Garrett, thank you so much for participating with me and role playing and everything. Really appreciate you for that. And let's go make some money, guys. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.
Be safe out there.
Thanks,
You
Victor.
too, man. You're welcome.